to my channel. We're here again to chat about Jaclyn Hill. I know that these videos sort of bring out polar opposite responses. I'm prepared for that. It's okay. I'm really not coming from a malicious standpoint, despite what fans of Jaclyn's might think. I'm really not. I don't have malice in my heart. However, I do have concern, and there are certain points that she made in her video from February 3rd that I want to address. Now, if you haven't seen the video, by all means, feel free and go and watch it. There are plenty of other commentary videos on it that break down sort of what all she said. I'm not going to do a running synopsis of the entire video. I just don't feel the need to, because the video is available, and if you really want to see what she said, you can go and watch it straight from her and not see it through the filter that I may inadvertently put on it. So I'm just going to say that at the outset. I'm just picking and choosing. I will try to give context where context is needed, but for the most part, what it is that I'm going to be discussing doesn't really need context. It could come from any video. So the entire flow of the video from Jaclyn is not necessarily important, but there are certain key elements, and those are the elements that I want to address. And really, the central theme of everything that I'm going to talk about centers around credibility. Because if the credibility hadn't been shot over the course of a number of years, I don't think I would be blinking at anything that she says. But because it has been, and there are people who disagree with me on that, and that is completely fine. From my perspective, credibility gone. For a number of reasons, not simply just one mistake or one misstep. There has been a cumulative effect here. So from my perspective, credibility, not so much. And therefore, whenever I see videos from her, I do come at it with a bit of skepticism, or a healthy dose of skepticism, if I'm being honest. So the first thing that I want to talk about is where Jaclyn says in her video that she hasn't posted in quite some time. And that is a fair statement. So her video, the most recent, went up on February 3rd. The one prior to that was January 21st. And then prior to that was November 14th, which was the announcement of her highlighter launch. I went back and I actually counted the videos that she posted in 2019, and there were only 20 of them. So that's not even on average one every 2 weeks. That would take you to 26 if we're doing math. I think the argument could be made that she's not really a YouTuber anymore. At best, she's a sporadic poster. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. There's nothing contractually binding her to producing YouTube content. Yes, she has a very wide audience, but her subscribers are not entitled to content from her simply by virtue of the fact that they subscribed. If she decides ultimately to close her channel down, she's entirely capable of doing so and permitted to do so. And in fact, at this point, I think I would encourage her to do so, if only because, in her own words, producing content and publishing it on her website creates no end of anxiety for her. So if it's not fun, and if it's not something that's adding to her life, why do it? She's not relying on the AdSense from it. I can guarantee you that. She is independently wealthy at this point from all of her other ventures. So why put yourself through that? She tries to get ahead of it. And from my perspective in my career, I'm a lawyer by trade, that is a very common tactic to take. When you have something that you know is going to be criticized, you try and get ahead of it by addressing it head on. So, for example, in my line of work, if I happen to have a client who has a substance abuse issue, I won't try to bury that fact, because it does far more damage if we try to bury that and try to deny that there's a problem, and then evidence is presented down the road that shows very strongly that yes, this is a problem. Instead, what I prefer to do is talk to my clients and say, look, you need to address it. You need to own it. You need to show what steps you're taking to address it. And that goes over far better. People are far more willing to accept that people are going to change, that people make mistakes, and they're going to be more willing to forgive that if somebody can address it, acknowledge it, and show their plan for bettering themselves in the future. Where somebody sticks their head in the sand, runs away from something, and just denies that there's a problem overall, I'm reminded of Lipstick-gate, frankly, that is far more problematic. So I think that she has learned from her lipstick debacle and is now trying to get ahead of this particular problem. And she knows full well what the problem is. And the problem is that she doesn't tend to post videos until it's just before a launch of some product that she's affiliated with, whether it's through her own brand or through Morphe. I don't really see her collaborating with anybody else at this point, but who knows, because, spoiler alert, she is going to be announcing a collab soon that will be released in February. And that is the whole crux of this video. It's like 40 minutes long, it's about 37 minutes long, and I think the first 20 some odd minutes of that is explaining why she's been away, explaining why she hasn't been posting. No mention of the collab at this point, just explaining how difficult things have been for her. And I have no doubt, truly, that the amount of hate and the amount of criticism that she receives online has got to be hard. And I don't think it's a fair statement for us to say, well, you knew what you were getting into, grow a thicker skin. I don't think that's a fair statement. I think people that are just completely obnoxious and rude and downright hurtful, who focus more on physical attributes than on actual acts and behaviors, that kind of thing should not be tolerated by anybody. So, backing it up, she says that she got sick and this is why she hasn't been able to post. The video that she posted in January was posted on January 21st. She says in her February 3rd video that she was sick for 18 days specifically. Who knows? I don't keep track of that kind of thing when I'm sick, but she says it was 18 days. Fine, that's fair enough. Here's the problem that I have, though, is that she didn't get sick until sometime in January. The video that she ultimately posted on the 21st was pre-filmed in December. So you had probably a month to edit this video and post it. And if you were sick, fair enough. I don't know. I don't have access to her medical records. She wasn't sick enough to not post on her social media about being sick. I don't know what weight you want to put in there, but I'm just throwing it out there. But hire an editor. It's a one-off video. And it wasn't even a particularly difficult video to edit, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know what the raw footage looked like, obviously, but it wasn't an intricate, eye makeup tutorial or anything like that, where there would be a lot of different B-roll and different cuts and all that kind of thing going on. It was her sitting on the floor talking at a camera. It couldn't be that hard to edit. And if you're sick, certainly she has the resources, and I'm sure she has the contacts to hire an editor, even if it's just on a one-off basis. And the only reason I'm saying this is because if you state this very strong concern about your infrequent posting, the only person who can control that is you. And if you have pre-filmed footage and there is this option to have it edited on your behalf and posted, just do that. Otherwise, the concern that you state about, I hate the timing of this because I haven't put up as much as I wanted to, kind of loses weight and loses strength. So it's not that I'm saying she lied about being sick. It's more so that I don't believe this statement of, I really wanted to put up more so that people didn't think that I only post just before a launch. Because she could have posted at least that video earlier. And who knows, perhaps she could have put together some other video. I don't know the different strains of influenza and what the symptoms are and all of that kind of thing, but I have to think there might have been some opportunity to at least do one other video in there, but that's just me guessing and making assumptions. Typically a dangerous thing to do. Now, to circle back to the point of all the criticism that she receives, from what I have been able to see on Twitter at least, I don't really read the comments on her posts or anything like that because I don't follow her on social media, but the criticisms that I have seen on Twitter center largely around her weight and her appearance, and in particular her face. And I really don't think that there's any denying or any argument over the fact that her face has changed. I think what the argument lies around is why. And everybody's assumed that it's filler, and some people assume that she has gained weight. And she addresses this in her video. She says that it's not filler, says that she has had lip fillers in the past, but hasn't had any sort of face filler for at least 2.5 years, I believe she said. If not 2, then 2.5 years. And she does make a fair statement by saying, I don't owe you guys that. And this is true. Nobody deserves to have the information as to when somebody's undergone any sort of medical or cosmetic procedure. We're not entitled to that information. But when there is such rampant speculation, I can see why she would feel compelled to address it. So she does admit to gaining weight and says that she gained about 30 pounds in 8 months, that it all started after her lipsticks were launched. I have no issue if she gained weight. Who am I to judge? Who am I to judge? I've lost 85 pounds, which means that I was 85 pounds heavier than I am now. I do not sit in a place of judgment on people's weight. Now, Jaclyn then goes on further to say that she turned to alcohol to help her cope with her anxiety and depression after the lipstick debacle. And again, I have no way of knowing whether this is true. I have no way of knowing to what extent there was substance abuse. I'm not saying that she is not being honest about having turned to alcohol. I think that is an unfortunately common event, that people do find solace in alcohol and other substances, and then it does become an addiction. She didn't come out and say that she has become an alcoholic or she is addicted to any sort of substance, but she did say that she has turned to alcohol and was using it sort of as self-medication, basically, and that this caused a lot of bloating in her face. She goes on to say that she's in therapy and leaves it open-ended and leaves it open to speculation as to whether or not she has stepped away from alcohol, if she is actively reducing it, what steps she's taking to address that. And again, we're not entitled to that information, but I'm just making the comment there that we don't know where she's at with that. And if the statement is that the change in her face is a result of the alcohol, perhaps we'll see a change going back to what her face used to look like, the more slender, chiseled sort of face that she had. And if it doesn't go back, like, who the fuck cares? It's a face. It doesn't matter. The face does not make the person. However, if she is not being honest and forthcoming about the alcohol consumption, and I have nothing to suggest that she's not being honest. However, if she is not being honest regarding her alcohol consumption, if she is simply using this to detract from speculation regarding her face, and I have nothing to suggest that this isn't a true statement, so this is just me in a hypothetical saying if, and I did say if, and I'm repeating it one more time, if this is not a true statement, then that is so disrespectful for people who are trapped in addiction. That's all I've got to say. So after over 20 minutes of giving this sob story, essentially, of talking about she had to go to LA because she had issues with her house, I will just note that she talks about moving to LA, and I believe she even had a video saying why I had to move to LA. She didn't move to LA. She visited LA for an extended period of time. I think it was like 3 months, but she didn't move to LA. There was always this plan that she was going to go back to her house when the damage was fixed. It's just a point, but when we're talking about credibility, words count and words matter. And when you use words that have a far more dramatic meaning, such as I moved across the country, then that's what people expect to have had happen when it turns out that you were simply on basically an extended vacation. They're not quite the same thing. Nothing turns on this, but it just furthers my point that words are important and words do lead to this overall sense of credibility. So after over 20 minutes of talking about going to LA, not liking the scene out there, finding that people are very two-faced and very fake, coming back to Florida, finding that she needs additional work on her house. She has anxiety, she has depression, she's turned to alcohol, she's thoroughly embarrassed over her launch of her lipsticks, all of these negative things that have been going on in the background. After over 20 minutes of discussing this, she wraps it all up by saying, but I don't want you guys to think that I'm just here to sell you things, and then segues that into talking about her upcoming collab launch. And it was at that moment where my eyes rolled so hard that it kind of hurt. Because this video could have been a standalone video all on its own. It could have just been, here is 2019 in a nutshell. Here's hoping for a better 2020. It's off to a rocky start, but here are my plans for the future. Here are my aspirations. I hope everybody else kills their goals. Go team. That could have been it, full stop. She says her collab isn't launching for a few weeks, so that does give more time to do an eyeshadow tutorial, talk about some of your favorite products, anything makeup related to help alleviate this sense that she only posts when products are launching. She states that that's a concern of hers. She states that she's embarrassed about the timing, that she actually tried to push this launch back, but the CEO simply said, can't do it. No explanation as to why the CEO can't do it, because one would think CEO probably holds rank and probably could do it. But the statement was made that the CEO simply said, can't do it. So if there is this genuine concern that there's a video, there's a launch, there's a video, there's a launch, again, as I said earlier, the only person who can control the frequency with which she posts videos is her. She has time to do it. Just do it. So again, credibility. There was one other point that I picked up on, and she was talking about how product is her number one passion, but that she also does like meeting subscribers. And again, it just comes down to words. And once again, nothing turns on this, but it all sort of helps to paint the picture. She says, and I think the direct quote was, I get so excited because I get to meet someone who likes my pictures. And that's telling to me in terms of her attitude and her feelings regarding her subscribers. She's talking about meeting subscribers, but she's not saying, I get so excited to meet you guys. I get so excited to meet somebody who also loves makeup, or whatever the case. She says, I get so excited to meet somebody who likes my pictures. If we shorten that down, it basically says, I get excited to meet people who like me. It's a fair enough statement, but I think it's kind of telling, just in terms of the word choice. Now, finally, about this upcoming launch. I can only speculate and I can only guess that it's with Morphe because pretty much all of her collabs are. I do have a question as to whether other big brands would collab with her at this point, given her long history with Morphe and how people tend to feel about that. I know she has every bit as much support as she does detractors, but there is this very long history of basically being in bed with Morphe. There's also a history of launches not going well. Look at Becca, look at Makeup Geek, it never happened. Look at The Vault. There's always these problematic issues. And then of course there's also the problems within her own brand. I don't know if other big brands are going to knock down the door to work with her. That's just speculation, and I'd love to hear from you guys what your opinions are on that. Now again, with respect to the upcoming collab, she says that she's been working on it since the end of 2018 and that she's worked so hard on it. She's super excited, the product is amazing, you guys are gonna love it, all of that kind of stuff. I think if we go back and look at every collab she's ever done, she's always worked so hard on it and she's always worked so long on it. And there have been times where she has said that she's in the lab choosing colors, doing all this kind of thing, only for us to find out after the fact that that was not the situation. I just find it interesting because if she's been working on it for so long, then clearly she has to know when the end is in sight and when these products go into production, what the planned release date is and all that kind of thing. And again, it goes back to this statement of being embarrassed about the timing because she doesn't want people to think that she's just on YouTube to sell stuff. You had to know. It's been over a year of working on this by the time December rolls around. Pre-film some videos and get them up. Again, you're in the driver's seat. You can control this. You can change this particular narrative, but it takes effort to do so. I don't know that the effort or the desire is truly there. Just two more quick points and then I'm going to wrap this up. And again, it all comes down to wording. So she does say at one point, I just want to be honest with you. I just want to sit down and open up with you. And she also says, I'm such an honest person. People who are speaking genuinely and honestly don't necessarily have to remind the audience over and over again just how honest and genuine they are. At some point, it starts to detract from that honesty and it starts to infringe upon credibility. And that was the sense that I picked up from this video, was that there were at least 3 instances, according to the notes that I took as I was watching it at any rate, 3 instances where she assures her audience that she is just being honest, or she wants to be honest, or she's just opening up. And that's the kind of thing that kind of raises a little bit of a red flag for me in terms of whether or not what I'm hearing is truly genuine. Now, the last thing, after all of these minutes in this video of basically getting out in front of the problem and almost in a way trying to ensure that people don't come for her by saying how difficult it is for her when people do come for her, and saying that she doesn't want people to think that she's just here to sell products and all of this kind of thing. After announcing that there's this collaboration coming and that there's going to be a video on it soon and it's going to be released within this month, she closes off her video by asking the viewers to support her. So again, I think that this video very well could have been a standalone video without any mention of any sort of collab and without any call to action in the form of, I hope you will support me. And in this instance, because she's saying it not after talking about her health issues, her mental health issues, her potential alcohol issues, she's saying it after talking about a product launch, I can only assume that the meaning behind support me is buy from me. Again, I'm assuming. It's open for interpretation and it's open for discussion in the comments down below, but that is the interpretation that I am left with, and that is what has put a sort of bitter taste in my mouth. All right, with that, I'm going to wrap this video up. I don't know just how cohesive it has been, but I did want to sort of tease out some of these little issues and then have a conversation with you guys down below. So I hope to see you in the comments, and thank you so much for taking the time to watch. I will see you in my next video. Until then, just be a decent human being. Bye for now.